Everybody, April 15th, Jonathan Lemire and Mara Gay still with us. Join the conversation. We have MS Now contributor Mike Barnicle and CEO and co-founder of Axios, Jim Vandehei. It's good to have you all with us this hour. We return to the latest developments tied to the Middle East. There is new reporting this morning from the Washington Post that the Pentagon is sending thousands of additional troops to the Middle East in the coming days. Officials tell the paper the Trump administration is still considering additional strikes or possible ground operations if the ceasefire does not hold. President Trump, meanwhile, said yesterday negotiations could resume over the next 2 days, possibly being held once again in Pakistan's capital. This all comes as the United States military blockade of Iranian ports continues, now into its third day, in an effort to put economic pressure on Tehran. U.S. Central Command said yesterday that no ships made it past the blockade in the first 24 hours. Joe.
Yeah, and Jim Vandehei, there's not only optimism for the first time in quite some time inside the White House, but also allies in the region believe that while the United States has been very effective in hitting many of the military targets that it wanted to hit at the beginning of the war, that there was still the economic problem of people like, countries like Russia and Iran actually doing better in the war economically with oil than they did before. This changes the dynamics of that. And I talked to people in the region yesterday who said, finally, the Iranians are in a position where they're just going to have to deal with us. They're going to have to do a deal that, the hardliners aren't going to like. But if they're degraded, not only militarily, but now economically, by not getting the oil revenue in every day, they believe that finally we're in a situation where time is on the United States side.
Yeah, that would be awesome if it's true. And I think there's a logic to that assumption. But war is not, by its very nature, logical. You still have the new regime, whatever it is, might be even crazier than the previous regime, and they have their own incentives, and then they have their own reasons to be able to send the signal that the United States and its allies, Israel, should never do this again. So I hope you're right. I will say, if the president's sending more troops, one of the lessons that we've learned over the last year in watching him is that very rarely does he send manpower or machinery and not utilize it. And so there's still this assumption that this could get a lot messier. You watch the markets, it seems to be like everyone has moved on and the war has been solved. I hope that to be true, but I think people need to be clear-eyed that this could still spiral in very bad directions.
Yeah, and Mika, the Wall Street Journal does, following up on Jim's point, while there is optimism, the Wall Street Journal this morning reporting that the leaders that have been replaced in Iran, the new group is even more hostile to the United States, if that's possible, even more radical, even more militarized, and also even more extreme when it comes to their view of the world through their religion.
We're going to get a sense on all of this from our next guest. Let's bring in Norway's Minister of Finance, former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. He's in Washington, D.C. for the spring meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And certainly some questions about the global economy will be coming your way. But first, I want to start at the beginning here as it pertains to NATO. How would you characterize the relationship between the United States and its NATO allies and where it's heading?
Well, of course, there are problems in that relationship. We have seen the criticism expressed very clearly by President Trump. At the same time, I strongly believe that we need an alliance between North America and Europe. It makes Europe safer, but it also helps to make the United States safer. Russia, China, they don't have anything like the U.S. has in NATO, more than 30 friends and allies. And the U.S. is big. It's 25% of the world economy. But together with NATO allies, we are together 50% of the world economy and 50% of the world's military might. So I believe it is in the national security interests of the United States to have friends and allies in NATO, and therefore I believe that NATO will prevail.
Jonathan Lemire.
Ms. Stoltenberg, the president overnight tweeted again, Truth Social, that he's saying that NATO is not there for us now. They won't be there for us down the road. We should take a moment to remind Of course, those watching that the one time Article 5 was invoked in the history of the alliance was to benefit the United States after September 11th. That, of course, NATO soldiers served in Middle Eastern wars. Many died helping the United States. But there are some in Europe that I speak to who have worried that NATO, though certainly it exists, it has been weakened already. That the sense is that it's, that Article 5 guarantee is its backbone. And that the president suddenly questioning it, whether saying that Europe won't involve or implying the United States won't honor that treaty. How concerned are you that this alliance already has been damaged by the last few months?
Well, language and perception matters, so it is important not to talk in a way that undermines the deterrence of NATO.